On the night of June 22 to 23, 1943, the assault group of the 11th Battalion of Sapper Engineers of the Soviet Army, accompanied by infantry companies of the 37th and 38th Rifle Divisions, received the mission to clear a path through a minefield and capture some lightly fortified German trenches in Boronovo-Porichev and the Leningrad region. The plan was to use the sapper engineers to break through the barbed wire barricades and open a path for the infantry to break through all the defenses. The men of the sapper engineer group, highly trained to face fortified defensive positions, believed it was going to be a fairly typical mission: break through weak German defenses. However, when they reached the German positions, they realized they were in a big mess. Intelligence had underestimated these defenses, and unfortunately, with their forces, they couldn't break through the extensive machine gun nests. Intense machine gun fire forced the combat engineers to take cover in nearby artillery craters, while the infantry was further back. Harassed by machine guns and realizing that the engineers wouldn't be able to break through the barbed wire, they abandoned them. The group of engineers was left alone, and one by one they fell at the hands of the powerful Maschinengewehr 34S. For decades, people searched for these soldiers' resting place, but the battle was so brief that no exact location was recorded. Until in 2017, a group of searchers found the resting place of these brave men, giving them a proper burial and returning mementos of their loved ones to their families. There were many relics from that time. I personally, while looking at the photos of this ancient but interesting discovery by those explorers, noticed something extremely interesting. Reviewing this Pistolet-Pulemyot 41 barrel, I noticed an unusual piece of metal on it, resembling a flash suppressor. I've seen many submachine guns like this, even in real life, but never with something like this on the muzzle. They always looked like this when I saw them. So I thought it was some kind of modification that the soldier carrying this rifle made to help with something. But that can't be, since it stayed attached to the weapon for 70 years. I mean, this weapon was manufactured that way deliberately. The few rifles that were found also had these, so I decided to investigate further about it. I reviewed these weapons in my favorite games from that era. They were identical to the ones we know. I searched for many Pistolet-Pulemyot images but didn't find anything similar. And after a sleepless night, I found the answer to this piece of metal. And it turns out that it's an attachment that at first glance looks like some kind of flash suppressor, but it was actually very useful. It enabled the soldiers to break through the German defenses in a very fast, more effective way. In fact, it almost made them unstoppable. To understand what this was, we first need to understand who the assault engineers were, also known as the Soviet Armored Infantry. You probably didn't know about them or only knew a little. These men, as shown in the video introduction, were very brave frontline soldiers, focused on breaking through strong German defenses. The creation of these battalions was an initiative of the Soviet High Command. They wanted to create a prototype of what we would know in the future as special forces. They selected outstanding soldiers with vast combat experience, and they trained them to have knowledge of engineering and in the use of tools such as extreme high-intensity combat tactics. This last factor was very important for them, since they were men who would almost always be under machine gun fire, being shot at from all angles. All this knowledge was focused on creating specialized brigades for penetrating and destroying German fortifications. In this way, by May 1943, the first 15 assault sapper engineer brigades were delivered to serve on the front against the Germans. We should not confuse the assault groups with the rest of the sapper engineers. Those who were assigned to fight on the front line were the assault groups. Initially, these brigades lacked tanks and artillery, so they were always deployed with other forces. Their job ended after breaking through the defenses, and once finished, they were withdrawn. In 1944, they got specialized armored vehicles for their work, 20 per company. Many of these armored vehicles had PT, 3 mine rollers, and OT, 3 flamethrower tanks, further expanding their capabilities and lethality when it came to destroying defenses. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about them was that they were soldiers with armor. They wore the which consisted of 2 pressed steel plates that protected the most important part of a man, the torso, and of course the groin. The plates were 2 millimeters thick and only weighed 3.5 kilograms. Of course, these wouldn't protect you from a machine gun shot, but they were very effective against machine and Pistolet-40 shots, and of course they made you immune to shrapnel, or at least in key areas. The opinion about the effectiveness of this armor was mixed, but overall they were excellent for trench warfare. Since a yes. Different points in just a second, and even without letting go. Their weapons. This saved the weight. Of carrying one. Bulky pair of scissors on their back, and also did to the soldiers, practically. They could run to defensive positions without stopping for almost any obstacle. Likewise, this instruction manual from that time shows it. It was just a piece of metal held by a clamp with a bolt that simply directed the wire. It was initially designed for the Pistolet-Pulemyot Degtyarovo submachine gun. In fact, the manual I found seems to be made for this weapon, but with some changes. It was also adapted for use on the Pistolet-Pulemyot Shpagina. The attachment worked regardless of promoting the use of this accessory for the Pistolet-Pulemyot Shpagina. -41 led the engineer guard S.N.M. Frollo. In 1942, he considered using it for the infantry. Normal, so they wouldn't have to wait for the sappers, special tools for cutting barbed wire. But with the rise of the assault engineer sappers, this tool became more characteristic of the latter. It wasn't a popular tool, so to speak. The sappers used them more regularly than the infantry. However, they couldn't do the job as quietly as scissors. Using this cost you the element of surprise. That explains their small numbers in both the regular infantry and the sapper group, where despite being used quite a lot, not all soldiers with Pistolet-Pulemyot Shpagina preferred it. No other army used anything similar in World War II. However, it wasn't the last time we would see something like it. Rifles like the Finnish RK-62 had a flash suppressor, whose openings were also designed to break barbed wire in the same way, or rifles like the Automat Kalashnikova Skladnoy. 74U also had these features. And interestingly, this device wasn't created around the time of World War II, but we would see similar devices used on the Mosin Nagant in World War I. Since it was a very specific tool for engineer assault brigades, very few of them survived over time. All of that made it hard to find information, and if that was tough, finding images was even harder. But history has a habit of always finding a way to come to light. By men like you and me. Did you know a helicopter crashed inside Chernobyl during the reactor cleanup? You didn't know. I invite you to watch the video on screen. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. That crashed in Chernobyl during reactor cleanup. If you didn't know, watch the video on screen. Thank you very much for watching this, and goodbye.